Welcome back. This is lesson 7 of the Dynamic WordPress course for beginners. In this lesson, we're going to be talking about making use of filters along with the listings and queries that we discussed in the previous lesson. So you have to pay attention to this one. What are we going to talk about here? We're going to talk about making use of filters to, as the name implies, filter the listings that are placed on the page. Let me show you what we're talking about. Right now, on this page, inside of our website that we've built so far, we have a project list inside of here. This is a list of projects, and we want to be able to filter these projects by the skills related to these projects. You remember when we're talking about this inside of our dashboard, if you come down here, you see inside of projects, you also have skill, the skill taxonomy, which we created. And we also added inside of that a list of terms like brand design, web design, and web development to attach to each of these projects, right? So we want people to be able to filter the projects we have on this page based on the skills that we provide them with here, okay? So let's do just that. To do this, we want to come back to our dashboard. We want to come inside of Crocoblock here to dashboard and we want to click on install. We want to install another plugin of Crocoblock that does this amazingly. It's called JetSmartFilters. And if you scroll down here, you'll find it right here. Let's click on install. Now, once this is installed, what we want to do next is to activate this plugin. And once we do, we'll now have the JetSmartFilters option right here inside of our dashboard. So let's activate the plugin and go ahead to do just that. Now, how do filters technically work? In fact, the main question should be, what are filters? Let's clarify that. Filters are actually a bunch of options that are put on a web page that a person can select from that will further narrow down the options that the person has inside of his listing grid. The listing grid, as you recall, will always be based on a query of items from the database. Understood? Let's make it make sense. We're going to come down here and select JetSmartFilters. You have the Smart Filters option here. And as you could already expect, there are no filters on the site. So let's create one. We're going to click on add new right here, and you have this new page where you can add a filter name. So what do we want to call this filter? Let's say we want to call this filter by skills. Something like this should be fine. Okay, skills. And inside of filter type, you have all of these filter types right here. Some of them are bordering on intermediate to advanced concept. And what you can do with the options you have inside of here is truly limited to what you can imagine. But we will not delve into the advanced concept right now. Let's keep things very, very simple, okay? So for this use case, let's select checkbox lists. And as the name implies, it's a list that a person can check through, right? So let's select that. Inside of here, as the data source, we want to select the source of the items that will be inside of that filter. And as we discussed just a few minutes ago, we have a taxonomy of skills. So we're going to select that as the data source. And it's going to ask us which taxonomy is that. We're going to say the skills taxonomy, where we're going to scroll down here and just select skill. Then inside of terms order by, it's basically asking us, how do you want these items to be ordered? Do you want them to be ordered by the name, or do you want it to be ordered by the slug, that's the URL, or the ID? You know, all of these options right here. I'm going to say order it by the name and do so in an ascending order. That's what I'm going to select here inside of terms order. Now it's asking us what is the relational operator here, and it gives us two options, union or intersection. Keep first in mind that the checkbox filter here will allow you to select multiple items. So you can select web design, you can also select web development, and just as we have inside of the skill option right here. So you can select multiple options, right? So what is basically asking us here is, do you want us to return a listing of items where all of what the user selects, let's say the user selects both web design and web development. Do you want both of this to be true before we return the listing of items? In other words, do you want all of the items we return inside of this listing to compulsorily have both web development and web design? Then in that case, you want to select intersection. But if you want the items that are returned to be one or the other, you want to select here union. So let's say a person selects web design and he also selects web development. It's going to return the list of all of the items, even if they have only web design or they have only web development. Intersection says you must have both. Does that make sense? Great. So in this case, we want to select union right now. If you didn't understand what I just talked about, rewind this just a little bit and you'll get it for sure. Trust me, you will. Okay? Now, down here, you have show empty terms. What this is saying is for each of them, we have the counts. The counts just says these are the number of posts that are attached to this term. So it's saying if this count is 0, do you still want to show this item here? Because does it make sense to show an item when you click on it, it returns nothing? Well, if you want that to happen, then go ahead and click on show empty terms. And that way, even if there's a skill here with 0 count, it's still going to show in the front end. Okay, if you want that, do that. In fact, let's do that. We're going to toggle that on. Inside of show only children of current term, we're not going to talk about that for now, but remind me to talk about it when we're talking about archive pages, okay? Now, where you have group terms by parent, what it's basically asking you is, do you want a list of all of the skills that you have here in case there is a child skill? For example, if we create another skill here where it is a child of an existing skill, do you want to be able to group these items and even make them collapsible? If you toggle on group terms by parent, you also have collapsible as an option here, which means that all of the groups of parents that also have a child inside of them will be grouped. If that's confusing, don't bother too much about that, or test it out and let me know what you find in the comment section below. But also remind me to talk about this if we're delving into intermediate to advanced concepts. For now, let's just toggle off both of those options as we do not need that for now. This last option here is basically asking us, where is the list of these things you're fetching from? Is it a checkbox meta field? Is it a meta field that is also a checkbox meta field? Because it's supposed to be handled differently, so we want to know. If it is not a checkbox meta field, you don't need to touch this option. In this case, it is not. We're dealing with a taxonomy and we have a number of terms inside of it. That's it, right? Now, inside of exclude or include, it's as the name implies, you can include by a number of terms or exclude a number of terms right here. Play around with that, let me know what you find. Where you have use custom query variable, we're not going to delve into that. That's intermediate to advanced. We're going to leave that for now. Use default filter value is an option for you to be able to select and just add what is going to be the filter value that will be selected by default when a person loads up the page. So let's say you want only the skill of web design to be selected by default when a person visits the page. You're going to select web design and use that as a default value right here. But in our case, we don't want to do this. So we're just going to toggle this off for now. And we have the final fields here to talk about. We have filter label and active filter label. What these are is pretty simple. What we have here is a label for us to show to someone in the front end if we so desire to say, hey, this is what this filter is for. So let's say it's a skill filter. We're going to select skill. Inside of active filter label, we're saying once a person has selected one of these skill, we could show the number of filters that are currently active. And what do we want to call it in that case? We still want to call it skill. So we're going to select that as skill. And once we're done with all of this, we can click on update. Okay, now that that's done, let's move right ahead. We're going to come back inside of the edit page for our home page right here because we want to put that filter just below where we have our projects right here. So let's refresh this page just so we have a list of all of the filters that we've created, which is just one. Keep in mind that when you create any filter, in fact, when you install JetSmartFilters, all of these filter types will come with all of the filter type widgets that are equivalent to them. For example, right now we've just created filter by skills, which is a filter type of checkbox list. What we need to do is to come inside of here and look for a widget for checkbox lists. So we can come here just below project, we can click on that so that whatever we add as the elements just adds it just below what we selected. So here we can select checkbox as the filter type, which is what we have right here. We see that's the widget right there. Once we click on it, it adds just below the project's widget right here. This heading widget, just below it, we have our checkbox filter right here. Once we have that, we need to also select our filter, because remember, we can have multiple of these checkbox filters inside of the website. So here we can type in skill and we have filter by skill right here. This is absolutely nice. We can go ahead to select what the filter is for. We have a number of these options here. If you're using Elementor Pro, you have some of these options provided by Elementor Pro, which JetEngine now supports if you're making use of JetSmartFilters to filter those types, right? But in our case, we're making use of JetEngine, which is the listing we're making use of here, JetEngine listing. So we're going to select that right here. Now it's asking us what the filter type is. We have three options. The first option here is Ajax, but the meaning of it is not as important as understanding the function. What it really means is that selecting that is going to help you to automatically filter this without reloading the entire page. It's as opposed to the next option here, which is page reload, which will reload the entire page. The last one mixed is a combination of both. The next option here is apply on, and what it's basically asking us is that, do you want this to go ahead and filter just after you have selected one of the skills you have right here on the page? Well, if you want that to happen, select value change. If you don't want that to happen, but you want to click a button saying, okay, I'm done selecting all my filters, I need you to go ahead and filter it right now. So to do that one, you need to select click on apply button. In that case, you also need to show the apply button inside of here, or use the apply button widget. If you select here inside of widget and just select for button, you're going to find apply button right here. You can use that and connect that in a way that once you use all of the filters you have on the page, you have one apply button that's going to apply all of your filters. If you want that to happen, if that's the effect you're going for, absolutely do that. But in my case, I want to apply this once the value changes. And if I select show filter label, what is going to happen is that that filter label we added in the back, remember, is going to show right here. I don't want to show it. I mean, common sense should dictate what is being shown here, so I don't want to have to put a name. Now, the next part is query ID right here. I'm going to talk about that in a bit. Just remind me too, okay? Now, we can come to the style tab right here, and we can select the filter position. Do we want it in column or do we want it in line? Just like this. I think I prefer it in line, and I also prefer something to happen. If we come inside of item right here, I can toggle off show checkbox, what we have there, show checkbox, because I don't want it to show as a checkbox. I want it to instead have a design aesthetic of my choice. And what am I going for here? As you can see, you have three options. You have the normal, you have the hover state, and you have the checked state. Each of these options have the color settings for them. Let's say that the normal state should be maybe selecting this as the normal state, as the color. And then the background color, let's say the background color is this. Okay, I don't know about those design colors right now, but let's test it out. Let's see how things are. Now, after selecting that, I can come to typography right here, and I want to select this small font. Let's see how it looks. Maybe it's too small. Let's instead select paragraph text, and that should be all right. We also want to select padding around each of these items. We don't have the option of selecting, a pencil icon and being able to use our M value, or even having the M option selected here. But maybe we can ask that this option be provided for us, because as you remember in our previous lesson, we don't want to use pixel values here or even percentage values. What we really need to use is an M value when we're styling something that functions as a link, just like this. But let's just do it for now and ask them if there's a possibility of adding an M option for us sometime in the future. We're going to unlink all the values here. At the top, let's say we want that to be 8 pixels. At the bottom, let's say 8 pixels. At the left and right, maybe we can do 16 pixels. The left and right, we're just going to add that there. And we have this nicely laid out for us. Let's just scroll up, see how things are looking. Well, not looking bad so far. It's looking okay. Maybe I want to change this to something else, probably this, okay? Maybe that's better. And then maybe after a person has selected one option, we want to change the color to something else. So on hover, that is when a person just hovers over it, just like this. I want to select the background color to be something else. Let's say the background color should be this. So it's going to be like this when the person hovers. And then when it's actually checked, we want to use this other color right here. So after clicking on it and that has been selected, then it's going to change the color to what we have inside of our checked option right here. We also want to, for each of these cases, select the white as the text color because that kind of appears to work better on each of these colors. So let's just select that. That should be all right. We also want to set the border radius right here. We don't have the opportunity right here to use a rem value. So let's just say maybe it should be 4 pixels and it just gives it a nice looking rounded corner right there. This is okay. It works, okay? We can use this to filter this listing. If you want to, you can go through all of the other styling options right now and see how things are working. But I don't want to bore you with having to go through each of them. I ask that you test things out and let me know what you find in the comment section below. Now, so far, let's leave things as is and just click on publish. I want to come to the front end, see how everything is looking. Maybe I would want to put this just beside where we have projects right here so that, you know, it's next to each other. A person can know very easily that these options are for him to select, but they also relate to projects. Maybe that's going to be visually okay. If you want us to, we can do that very quickly. Just below the divider, we can add inside of here a simple container inside of which we can add our heading. Just drag this inside of here. We also want to drag the checkbox filter inside of there. So both of them are inside of one container. It's a flexbox container. We can select the direction to row, horizontal. That way they're, you know, side by side, just like this. We can then also align items to the center so that they're very centered, just like that. And this looks very okay, at least in my opinion. I'm going to come back to the front end. Let's refresh, see how things are moving. This looks very all right. Now, if we scroll down just a little bit, we also notice that we have another listing here, different from the listing we have here. Remember, when we created it in the previous lesson, we created 2 listings. Now, let's talk about how to filter this by just testing things out, see how things are working. Let's select inside of here web design. Once we click on this, we see it grays it out just a little bit and it goes ahead to filter things. Let's see what the filter returns with. You can see it returns 2 items, Samer and Monter inside of here. But when you scroll down here, you notice inside of the blog listing, you now have Samer and Monter right here. Now, this doesn't make sense because we had 2 different listings right here, but now after filtering it, we have the same listing here and also here below. In fact, that's also why this took a little bit of time to load. Why? Because of the fact that we didn't specify when we were specifying our filters which of these listing items we wanted to affect. So it affected both. This is not an effect that you want. So let's refresh this entire thing so that we lose all of these changes. You can see right here, it comes back to working normally. We have our blog right here. We have our projects right here. So how do we stop this from happening? It's pretty simple. We're going to come back inside of our edit page right here. And for this particular listing, we're just going to click on it. This listing, the project listing, is what we want to select. We want to come inside of advanced right here. We want to come down here to where we have CSS ID, and we want to give this a specific ID. The CSS ID that you give to whatever element you have on any web design page whatsoever has to be unique. And what that means is that it can only appear once. Now, in this case, we know that the CSS ID is empty, so we can give it a unique ID. In this case, we're just going to call this projects listing as one word. It cannot have spaces, so just type it as I've shown you right here. Once you're done with adding an ID, you want to grab that ID. I'm just going to highlight and copy, and I'm going to come back to that filter, and I want to tell the filter, when you're looking for what to filter, this is the listing with this specific ID to target. So select the filter, come back here to content, and remember what we skipped, where we skipped query ID. This is where you paste that same listing grid ID. The same CSS ID should be applied to both. Also, after doing this, remember if we select that listing grid and come back inside of the content here just to take a look at what query this listing grid is based on, as we discussed in the previous lesson, right here, if you scroll down to custom query, you see you have nothing selected here. However, we base this listing on a particular query. If we want to, we can say we should use custom query. It's already working because that is what we built this listing on. But for just the sake of being very explicit, we can come here and select query of all projects on the site. It doesn't matter, the result is exactly the same. But the difference is that once we click on publish, we can come back to the back end, come back to the query that we created, the same query that I just attached to that listing. We want to select that query of all projects on the site. And remember the CSS ID we put on that listing and also on that filter. We want to come down here to where we have custom query ID. The message it says here is that when you put this query ID on the query ID of the filter settings, you also want to put that same query ID right here. So we want to paste that query ID inside of here. Once we paste that inside of there, it shows us a warning. It says, make sure that you set up the same ID for any filters using this query. We have it set up correctly because this ID is the same as the ID used on the listing. So all three can talk together knowing they're talking to the right element. All right. Now, once you have that selected, click on update query. You want to come back to the front end right now and let's test things to see that things are working the way we want it to. Once we refresh this page, what we want to see is if we select, let's say, brand design, for example, we see these filters very quickly and only filters that first listing grid right there. Let's scroll down and see if that also affected the listing grid just below. It didn't. And why? Because the listing grid just below it does not have the same ID. That's why an ID must be unique, because in cases where you need to make use of an ID, then you can very specifically make use of it to affect a single item on the page. Now, if you come to the top here and let's say you select web design, it quickly filters and shows all of the items that have web design in them. If you select web development, it shows you all of them that have all of these three. Remember, we selected union, so it's doing that. If we deselect this and deselect this, we only have the ones with web development. If we deselect that and select for web design, we have the one with web design. Speaking of which, I really don't like the colors here. Maybe we can adjust that a little bit. Let's just select that, come inside of style, come to item right here, and under the normal style, I want to click on that and just adjust maybe the color of this just a little bit. And then I also want to select the color here to maybe be this as the color. And this looks a lot better. Maybe I can adjust this a little too, because the other one was messing with my eyes. Now I can add this as a global color. I can just say the secondary transparent, something like this is okay. I don't know if I cannot spell transparent, but I mean, I'm not a parent. So if I can't spell transparent, will you blame me? You got that right. Now I can click on create. And once I do that, now that's added as a global color. I can use that everywhere else on the site. If I click on publish, let's just view that again in the front end. It looks a lot better than this ugly stuff I have going on right here. So let's refresh this. This looks okay. If you select web development, it loads up. If you deselect that, select web design, it shows only those that have to do with web design. And this is pretty fast. It's filtering our stuff for us and all of that without refreshing the page. Now, so far in this lesson, we've talked about filters and how you can use that to really drill down the items you have displaying on the page using a listing grid. We've shown you how to combine this with your query and how to ensure that the filter is filtering the correct stuff on the page. I hope this lesson has benefited you a ton. If you have any question on this whatsoever, please be sure to leave a comment down below and we'll be sure to answer your questions. All right? Now, what we just discussed lays an excellent foundation for what our next lesson is going to be. Our next lesson completely deals with archive pages and templates. You're going to understand how archive pages work and how they're essential in building out your WordPress website. How you can make use of filters and queries and listings in combination with building out your archive pages. We're going to build on all of the knowledge we've gathered in the first 7 lessons and build out something for ourselves. We're going to be fast, we're going to be efficient, and you're going to absolutely love it. And this is it, smart people. Be sure to leave a like on this video so it gets to more and more people, and also subscribe to the YouTube channel if you've not already done so. My name is Tobi Salami. I'll see you in the next one, so stay dynamic.